Welcome to the Tech on Toast podcast. My name is Chris Fletcher and I'm your host. Tech on Toast simplifies the way you buy and manage your hospitality tech. Do you need help untangling your tech? Head to our website techontoast.community and grab yourself a free tech audit. Find your next tech solution on our marketplace, attend our events, or simply say hello. We're here to help support the industry into the next generation. This podcast is brought to you today by Square. Picture this, all the tools you need to run your business seamlessly managed under one roof. From point-of-sale software and hardware to payments, Square's first-party solution integrates it all into one single dashboard. Beyond that, Square also offers team and inventory management, gift cards, and tools that will help you drive loyalty programs and marketing campaigns. So in a nutshell, Square streamlines your operation by pulling everything together under one roof as a single source of truth, helping you save time. Whether you're running a restaurant, cafe, bakery, bar, pub, or club, Square helps you simplify the way you do business and take payments. Square is trusted by over 4 million businesses globally. Get 20% off Square with Tech on Toast off countertop hardware with promo code SQUAREUK20. Visit square.com to use the promo code or to request to speak to one of our sales team. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the next episode of Tech on Toast podcast. And this week I'm delighted to be joined by Nick Paine, founder of Opspot. Nick, how are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Welcome to Brewdog Crash.
I know, it's wild.
Yeah, I'm loving the summer here. Come on, autumn, hurry up. And how's life, mate? How are you doing?
It's good. It's really good. We're super busy doing hiring.
Yes.
It's just very exciting. It's nuts as ever, but I suppose that's hospitality industry. So.
Yeah. It's not normal. And he's drinking a can of liquid death here, which just kind of sums up hospitality in a nutshell, which is water. But tell us a little bit about, before we get to the product, tell me a little bit about you. How did you end up in this place?
Yeah, so I've had a fairly varied background, I suppose. So I moved back to London just before COVID. Before that, I was in the Middle East for 6 years.
Oh, wow.
I worked for a Saudi family office, and we invested fairly heavily in California-based restaurant tech companies. So obviously, so from dark kitchens to robotics for cooking burgers and frying fries. I spent most of my time with a company called Pop ID, which is facial recognition for ordering kiosks. So the idea being that self-order kiosks are great. You can serve more people. The kind of average ticket price is higher, but people take a really long time looking at them. And when you look at the data, actually something like 70% of people always order the same thing when they come back, right? So it's why not use facial recognition? So when you walk up, you can say, "Hi Chris, here's your past orders. Here's your loyalty points." Massive that actually people use them because they don't have to put in a phone number, remember their card, whatever it might be. And we did some trials, I think, with Taco Bell, and took repeat ordering from 2.5 minutes on kiosks to under 20 seconds for returning customers.
Wow.
Which was amazing, and I was kind of the number 2 guy on the ground then. Based in
what great exposure that was to.
It was wild. We were running around college campuses, signing up kids, giving them free burgers to use the facial recognition. But now it's super relevant in kind of the facial biometric space. So I had, like I said, it was a pretty wild experience.
Literally, I had to take my daughter to Alton Towers on Saturday, which was horrific, and her friends. I was like literally just like daddy daycare. Yeah. So anyway, and they're older, like 14, so you can imagine the conversations in the car. Anyway, but we stopped at services on the way back, and literally there was a Leon and a McDonald's next door to each other. Yeah. And I was sitting there in my little tech head just watching people queuing for the things that bus queues. So I just thought the irony of these kiosks is making me giggle.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And then there's no one at the counter. Yeah. You get people who can't use them and they don't really work. And
it's just, and the demographic, if it's not right, like a services, it's not right because it's just people who want to eat, this captive audience. And like in a theme park, for instance, a real mix. Yeah. They don't know how to use them, or they're not familiar with them, so it's not a quick process. So very different to going to Coco de Mama, where you see people flying through the system. But really interesting. And then I suppose that exposure to that kind of tech got your brain ticking, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like I said, I've been there for 6 years. Kind of, I'd had enough of being back out in the Middle East, and came back to London literally just before COVID, which was fantastic timing.
Timing is everything.
So obviously everything kind of blew up. Interestingly, my sister actually has a catering company in East London and turned to delivery during COVID, as obviously there weren't any events, and started seeing all of these complaints coming through of things were wrong or missing, and And she was it was her in her kitchen. She's a professional chef, and she's like, I don't make this many mistakes. Like, something's not quite right here. And so we were chatting about it, and then that's kind of what introduced me to the kind of problem initially. I then walked around where I live in London and spoke to restaurants in the area, saying, "Is this a thing?" And they were like, "Yeah, we're being hit really hard from this." And that's kind of what put me on to thinking, I actually think I can help the restaurants here.
It's great, right? I mean, at the start of Deliveroo at Carluccio's, when I was there, we were one of the first people on the platform. I remember very quickly the problems, but it was weird. In a bigger company, it got swallowed up by finance, so I don't think it was truly visible until it grew and grew, and then like really small people, like smaller business, were being super impacted by this.
Massively. I mean, so our first customer was the local kebab shop, and bless him, he's been there for about 40 years.
He's still on?
He's still on.
Great.
Yeah, he's got the best price out of it.
Can't get him off
and
it.
I have
Yeah, but those guys,
hummus for life.
those guys are the best negotiators, right?
Literally, and he barely knows how to log on to his Delivery Hub account anyway.
Yeah.
But he knew that he was losing people ordering, whatever, fish and chips at 3 a.m. and then complaining they didn't get cutlery, so they couldn't eat it, so they're claiming full refund on food, and it's just it was wild. It still is wild.
And that process, can you just explain for people who don't know?
Yeah.
How does a refund work with Deliveroo or one of the?
Yeah. So it's a same across the board, whether you're in UK, Middle East, wherever. Same process, where essentially you get your food as a customer, and if something is wrong or
missing,
not missing, prepared incorrectly, something's wrong with it, you go through a process of essentially complaining. And then depending on what you say, you will get refunded either through credit or a monetary refund very quickly.
How quick? Like 24 hours quick, or?
Try 30 seconds quick.
What? I mean, I just don't. I live in the middle of nowhere, mate, so I just don't use it.
Yeah. No, it's about it depends slightly on the aggregator, but it's
how much evidence are they having to provide any evidence then within that process? So obviously
if it's a missing item, you can't.
I can't even cope.
That's harder.
Look, it's missing.
Exactly. Yeah,
that's just crazy.
And it's interesting. That's actually where we started seeing. So the data we see, the majority of the complaints are missing items.
Really.
And if you're kind of on the pessimistic side of that, you'd think that one, because occasionally drivers take food, and also, like you said, when you're asked to supply an evidence photo, it's much easier just to take something out of the bag and then pretend it's not there than intentionally mess up your food or do whatever.
It's interesting, right? Because cans, get into the detail here, but when I was a Prime Minister and I was on the board there, 25% of our overall sales were delivery. And we went through a real process of this, taping up the bags, Prime Minister tape, like sealing them, but most of the time we were forgetting to put cans in. Like genuinely, that seemed to be the biggest problem we had. Just speed, right? Because you're putting so much stuff out, and the cans were in a different. Because you're in a hot kitchen, the cans are in a cold place. Just that simple operational error was causing carnage, I suppose.
100%. So for us, I started it early on as I really want to help the restaurants, and it still is the goal, right? Which is, restaurants are really hard. Running a restaurant is really hard anyway.
Why would you do it?
And I think the margins are razor thin as it is. I think the kind of delivery space initially there was a fairly big power imbalance towards the restaurants basically not being able to do anything about it. And my goal was essentially to help balance that power back, give better information back to the restaurants, help them recover revenue when it has been fraudulently claimed or whatever it might be. And then also when we see they do make mistakes, explaining to them in kind of insight rather than just data dump. This is what were the trends we're seeing, whether it be certain location, whether
super insightful, right?
Whether
you guys
it be
really hold the
dishes,
keys to that.
exactly. And giving it back to them in like a bird's eye view of, look, this is what we're seeing, some suggestions. That's it. Like we want to essentially take work away from ops teams. Have kind of high consistency, recover more revenue when we need, because we have we've skipped ahead slightly, but so we have a camera that sits in the expo station. Like I said, the majority of complaints are missing items. So for our camera's main primary goal is to count items going to bags. Obviously, if you've ordered 6 things and you claim you only got 3, when we can see the receipt in store, we know which order's which, and we can see that actually it left the restaurant correct.
So on the last mile deliveries they call, or the
Exactly. It's like before we kind of started doing what we do, it was completely opaque, as in the food left the restaurant, and it still blows my mind that a restaurant can work as hard as possible and do everything perfectly, and then as soon as they hand over the food, their whole customer experience is blackout. You can't see anything, and then someone says it's gone wrong, and you've got absolutely no idea what's going on.
And to this day, I remember when we went to, because delivery wasn't at Prime Minister when I joined, and I was a big advocate for it. I was saying we should do this because I think, because the nature of a pie, it's hot, it holds well, we'll do really well, especially in the winter. And but the founders were just petrified of giving up that part. They just said, what happens if it goes wrong? What happens if this? And all that last mile delivery part, we just had no control over it. Do you still see that do you think that's still a big issue for a lot of brands, or do you think they've all kind of succumbed to the delivery space?
There's a couple of them still out there that I think are still hesitant towards delivery, but I think since COVID and obviously delivery blew up, it's just not going to go anywhere.
No. I mean, we were doing it anyway, right, in the form of takeaways. And it had to happen. And I was literally driving behind 2 Uber drivers yesterday in Cardiff, thinking, it's just insane. And even in sleepy Cardiff, and the outskirts of Cardiff, they're still in Caerphilly. We have Uber riders, so it's everywhere. No, it's super interesting. And the product itself, you alluded to a little bit there. How does it work then? So if I join Opspot tomorrow, I've got 10 restaurants. I've got an issue. Because how much clarity have they got? They've got data that tell them how much money they're losing then, I presume. In terms of refunds.
Exactly. So from restaurants will have like a summary of you're running at a X% loss.
Right.
With missing and incorrect items, for example.
Is that something you would look at very early on in the negotiations, say, or not negotiate in terms of?
Yeah, so we know what a pretty good rate is, and then if we see stuff that's higher than that, then we know either. It's really interesting because when you get into it, like geographically, there's more fraud in certain places.
This. I think it's really
when we see university students go back to uni, the like university towns, it explodes. They've got names for it. It's Uber Cheats and Slitheroo. Like, it's not someone makes a TikTok and then everyone starts doing it. You know what I mean? So it's super interesting. So
So almost like when a payment provider goes in, they'll look at their last 3 months credit card statements and they'll say, you spent this much, we can save you this. I'm guessing that's your play, right?
Pretty much, exactly. So we and it obviously varies massively, but we can expect to return about 1.5% on revenue.
I don't know if I should put it on the podcast, but a friend of mine at Honestburger told me the other day that you guys, I know you're in trial, but gave me a really interesting stat, which is hovering around somewhere in our social probably at some point, around what you guys are saving them. So it's super impressive. I won't say it now because I'll get it wrong, but it's super impressive what they're already getting, and that's really early days, right?
Yeah, super early days. So Honest is new to the family, and so we're just in the process of rolling out across the estate, but so seeing great numbers. And
the physical product is, you've got the cameras you mentioned. How does it? So once we've agreed that I've got a problem, and you can help me, how does it work?
So we have a single camera. It just needs a power source and then Wi-Fi generally. And at that point, either you can install it yourself, and one of our team will walk you through it, which takes about 5 minutes. Or if you want to trial and one of our team members can put it in to make sure everything's okay. And then at that point, your job is done. We provide live dashboards, so you can monitor all of the individual claims coming back. You can see when they were correctly just refunded by a customer. You can see why. We then obviously provide monthly report breakdowns on whether it be certain locations, food items, and it's really interesting when you start to get a couple of months data in. We have a really good example of one of our customers kept on making mistakes on 2 of the side dishes, and genuine mistakes, because we could see from our cameras, but also then the customer evidence photos, which is really interesting. So when there is a incorrectly prepared item and the customer takes photo to confirm it, we also then get those photos, so we can understand whether certain chickens being undercooked in location, for example. And these two dishes, we saw they're making genuine mistakes the whole time, and looked into the data, and actually it came down to the labelling. So it was the fact that they were using white labels with small writing, and the items looked pretty similar. And we're like, guys, just put like a pink sticker on one of them or something. They did it, and the problem went away. But when the restaurants are nuts, right?
And we had 17 pies, right? And the only way you could distinguish between the pies was the topping, and the topping could be a sesame seed or could be paprika. It could be black pepper. I'm trying to remember them all now, but there was different variations. So we had exactly the same problem because we were sending out vegan pies to people who want a moo, and then moo to a vegan customer. So it was about looking at the external package then. But again, as you say, you're so busy, you don't. It's really weird because delivery, when you first move on to it, it's exciting because you're making more revenue than you didn't have before. It's also a real helper of paying for everything else you have, right? Because your labour costs, food costs all going out the window, all the other bits that everyone knows about. So it is intriguing, and that operational slight, you're like a third wheel there, aren't you? Kind of saying to them, look, just watch out, but this is happening regularly.
Exactly. Like I said, our goal is to give more time back to the ops managers, right? Like, we don't think that they should be sitting down every morning for half an hour, 40 minutes, arguing with delivery companies without any evidence, not really understanding what's going on.
And probably won't.
Exactly. And I think also there's been an interesting shift with the aggregators themselves, which I think is the right thing, which is them requiring evidence from the restaurant when they're claiming back the refund.
I was going to say, because you're like defence, right? You've got the defence of the restaurant.
Exactly, and for us, our goal is not just to win back as much money as possible for the restaurant. That's not that useful. It's short term, fine, but if there are underlying issues that are happening, it's much better to work out what they are and understand them and fix them. Because you'll unknowingly be losing customers, reputation, whatever it might be. And I actually think that's more important than just
100%. And the enterprise guys will probably have a head of delivery, right, or someone who's in charge of that last mile and the kind of food. So, but then when you look, even the sites, 20, 30 sites probably won't. And you can be that, right? So you guys can sit in that role and do it remotely, which is how long does it take to onboard? So how long does it take to put the camera up? Is it literally like
5 minutes?
So it's not like something you need to get a contractor in or something.
No, not at all. And that was important for us to do that, because I think especially in kitchens, obviously we don't want to be drilling into stainless steel hoods and all this kind of thing.
I like a picture as well. Where the hell would you put it in back? But
so that's why we basically designed the cameras to be as user friendly as possible, and also just by having the camera within the restaurant at the delivery point itself kind of makes the staff concentrate a bit more as well. So naturally, just by it being there.
It's a deterrent, isn't it, for everybody? I think. Not deterrent's probably a negative word, but it's a watch out, isn't it? Saying, hey, look, let's get this right. And then at least we've got some kind of leveler that can manage or measure a metric, or where we can say, look, where we were doing great and where we're not doing so great, and we can fix it.
Exactly. And I think previously, I think one of the questions I get asked a lot is, well, do the staff mind? And I think we're a benefit for the staff, because previously they were probably being blamed for the inaccuracy
100%.
when actually it wasn't their fault. And so I think us being there kind of backs up that actually they are doing the right job, and maybe
I think any kind of not punitive measures, but like kind of compliance is welcome generally. I know people don't like Big Brother or whatever they want to call it, but the reality is it's compliance, and it's a metric to measure you by. And we did it in food safety years ago, right? And when we put in temperature checks all over the place, and it's all automated now and all that. That's the same thing, because before that happened, guess what? No one was doing it properly. People were half-assing it. There was like diaries covered in gravy or whatever, So you're the modern version of that. It's the delivery space that needs measuring, right? Because it is a bit of the Wild West, isn't it? I do think delivery feels like that. How have the aggregators received you? Because how does that work, that relationship?
So I think well, they've a couple of them have reached out, which has been great, and we've had really good conversations with them. And I think again, if we were just out there trying to win as much back as possible and kind of being like, screw the delivery companies, like fight for the restaurants. I think the fact that our goal is to actually say, look, we want to step back and be like a mutual third party, right, between the restaurant and the aggregator. We want to say something went wrong, and we will tell you at what point it went wrong, which I think is really important, and why we haven't been kicked out of their offices.
That's important, because I was going to say, because when you're sitting in the middle of potentially, or we sit in the middle of partners and operators, it's important that you are very bad. It's also a tricky line to walk, right? Because obviously the operators will be saying save money.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, well, I am, but also you have some issues you need to look at as well. And you mentioned a dashboard. So the dashboard will give them metrics around missing items, exactly what they're looking at.
Full
on
breakdown
their reports.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you don't need the aggregators to do. I know you work with them and you're friendly, but you don't need them to switch on a customer.
No.
That's very cool. So you can basically just the reason I recommend you to Tommy, because we were talking about tech that can save you quick wins in tech, right? Not just quick wins, but being able to install quickly, be able to get on board quickly, because a lot of the stuff, the tech that's out there in POS, workforce management, is a bit more deeper, right? Yeah, it is big decisions. And where you guys, we can switch you on pretty quick, right? And we can literally go out here now and say to these guys at Brewdog, we could try. Just say, let's have a go and let's switch it on. That's how rapid it can be, right?
Literally, we could, we could do it same day. As long as we keep, it takes as long as we can get you a camera, however fast.
And they just need the one camera.
Expo, as it would. There's a couple of locations that might need two,
depending on how it's
exactly when it's like some crazy store setup. But generally speaking, it's just one, because it's at that final point of packaging. And like you said, most of the issues we see are the odd sauce missed or drink missed or whatever it might be. Very rarely is there glaring operational issues that need to be fixed. And there was one time where there was, I won't say where this was obviously, but it was particularly satisfying, where there was a customer where we saw a massive spike in like a really burnt food item, and consistently same day. And so that same day we got in touch with the store directly and said, look, considering the item you're sending out isn't cooked, why are all these photos burnt? And it turned out that the warming cupboard that they left food in after they'd prepared it was cranked all the way up to full temperature. No one had any idea. So it was cooking the food through the bottom of the bag. Forget fire hazard there, but like that was something where they didn't even look. One, because they didn't have like consistency around the refund process. That would have been missed. So then God knows how long that would have been going on, right?
And this is where your name comes into. I don't know. Did you? I presume you named the company. Did you?
Yeah, it's around kind of operational.
Yeah, but literally, well, that's literally what you described. Because all I can think of is my old role, and I just haven't got the time to see that. I had 48 sites at one point. I haven't got the time to see someone's. And it happens every day, right? If you've ever worked in a restaurant, even for a day, you'll see stuff going on. You're like, oh my god. And it's not because people don't care or anything like that. It's just they're busy places. People are undertrained half the time. There's a high turnover of staff, but. Being able to spot stuff operationally very quickly from a remote place is very cool, and it's something that I massively advocate, because those guys who are pushing their cars around the country don't have the time to do it.
No, exactly, and I think that our goal was exactly that: give more time back to the staff to not bother with this stuff, especially the kind of dispute side of things.
It tied up my CFO Prime Minister and her assistant. It tied up their time. They were spending at least a day at the end of every month. On that alone, just on refunds.
Yeah,
and it always becomes an obsession. It's a bit sad showing off a bit my OCD here, but it became an obsession trying to find every penny back, right? Because you're so angry that it's been taken. Because you feel like it's been taken from you. The reality is that actually you've probably made some mistakes.
Of course you have.
But you've got no visibility, so you can't. It's gone. So you don't know. So your instant defences are.
And it just creates like a bad environment for everyone, right? Like you say, you guys get pissed off the aggregators.
Yeah.
The customer at some point is having a bad experience. So our goal essentially is just to be like, look guys, let's put some visibility in this, and in turn should improve everyone's experience in the delivery space.
That's huge. And I remember a restaurant manager we had in Liverpool. She was very obsessed with the cashier. She used to sit there every night and phone Deliveroo after her shift. She'd finish at 5 or whatever, and spend the next 2 hours just arguing with them instead. I was just like, cashier, go home, man. It's £8. But the problem is that attitude as well from me saying it's £8, but scale that up over 50 restaurants. Exactly. That's not £8, right? It becomes a powerful number. And what is it? So in terms of the product, can you develop it anymore? What's the plan for going forward? I presume you've got some kind of roadmap in your back pocket.
Yeah, 100%. So from our point, there's obviously everyone's obsessed with AI, right? And I think
let every conversation I have, yes.
And I had an interim role for a couple of months when I first came back to London in an AI company. It was in the automotive space. Yeah. And we were building real-time human intent prediction software, right?
Sounds insane.
Mad. Yeah, I was by far the dumbest guy in the world. So I was like,
God knows what I would have been.
If you can explain it to me, then we can explain it to other people. But anyway, that kind of made me realise that if you were to go full AI with this kind of stuff, the cost of the spec of the cameras, the cost of in terms of even just creating a data set, right? You'd have to create individual data sets for each restaurant, which you need 15, 20,000 images at least to be accurate enough for it to be
already over it. Yeah.
Well, exactly. One, you're already over it. The cost, the time, all of this kind of stuff. So it's something that we're kind of rolling out AI elements where we can and where it makes sense.
I just said this in the last podcast, and hopefully I won't put them out next to each other, but it's use cases, isn't it, for AI?
100%.
It really is where you can see something making a difference.
Yeah.
Just using AI for AI's sake is so stupid.
Yeah.
So it's about applying it to things that will really get us there quicker.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got, obviously we're able to create a huge amount of data, collect a huge amount of data, which is very important when it comes to this kind of thing. But for us, when something comes along that's relevant, accurate, and cost efficient enough that our customers will be willing to pay for, then I kind of avoid the AI stuff, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's like I've got like a bad taste in my mouth from.
Well, also I hate that phrase, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But also, if you have a product that works and is delivering what you said you'd do on your website, you know, if it's actually delivering cost saving and helping operational inefficiencies, then you're ticking the box already, right? And sometimes I think we get a bit obsessed with over developing a product or over manufacturing something. Just let it be until, as you say, an example comes along that says, well, this could really change the world, and then do it. So I think that the AI obsession is that, especially in the people space, it's really kind of rearing its head.
Exactly. And for us, so then it means we focus more on what we can see, right, in the restaurant. And so we kind of started life with, and it's still obviously very much a key pillar of what we do, around the disputes, understanding what's happening, what's going wrong, what's not. We're then starting to do a fair amount of work in the kind of compliance space. And I think, especially around virtual brands,
it's very interesting.
Is really interesting, because I think it's easy to take a virtual brand and say launch it in 100 sites, right? Even 50 sites. Maintaining the fact that other people are cooking your food and your brand, maintaining that they use the right packaging, that they're following the SOPs, and like that's as an.
Can you do that through your software? Can you check that the correct packaging's been used?
Yeah.
Wow. Franchisees are going to love you.
Well, that's the thing, and so does head office, because it makes sure that
any central function that runs door. You know, I say out your product out your back door. That's not what I mean, but you know what I mean. So people who run multiple brands from a particular kitchen set because they can. I've got a friend who runs a dark kitchen who's got multiple brands who runs them, and he's working with with Sessions products, and he's starting to set them up. But his main concern is that he's born this product and now he can't see it anymore. So I think that's huge.
Exactly.
Is that you're definitely going there then, I presume?
So we've already started working with a couple of people with that, which is and then we're seeing great results. And then also for us, aside from the restaurant space, is the grocery space. So, and I mean, even again, it's anything delivery, right? That's what Screwfix is now on delivery. And
of course it is.
So for grocery, it's really interesting because just the basket size is normally really high, and you see kind of high value items in there that mysteriously go missing quite a lot. So if it's like wine or booze,
looks at me like it's me. You've been following me around.
But it's again really interesting, and it's we need to understand what's going on, what's happening.
There was a documentary the other night about shoplifting. I don't know, a bit in the retail space, and they were I can't remember the insight they said, but it was mind blowing. The cost, and the scary thing is the cost for the bigger guys is obviously huge because they're bigger. But the real damage is to these guys who are running grocery stores. They might have 2 or 3, but, you know, and the little chains. They get. I mean, we're talking 20-30%. It's insane.
So I was speaking to the delivery manager in my local supermarket, and they do delivery, and they're losing $5,000 a week just on delivery, and she was saying that the majority of loss they see is when there's like a big weekly shop, so like 200 quid or whatever goes, and then if you can hear like bottles or something like that, funnily enough, if some of the order hasn't arrived, it's normally
and there's gaps in the tech, right? So Asda, for instance, I know because we used to use them where we lived, and we did an online food shop, and the man at your car would say, "Oh, I've got some exchanges for you." "Oh, I don't want them." can you refund them? And then they'd say, just leave it in the box, I'll do it later. Like, will you really? Because there's a guy behind me about to pull in, I think he's going to have my crisps. Anyway, but I didn't trust him, so I used to go onto the tech and do the refund myself through my phone, but then I get refunded twice, right, and stuff like that, because he would do it like out. So there's massive gaps there, and I think internally as well, you know, the old guy standing at the front desk with the screen, he's trying to watch up, you know, a Tesco superstore. I mean, unless he's like, I don't know, Superman, you're not going to see all these things. No. So that's where would you be? Would you be at checkout? Is that the idea, that you would sit around?
Yeah, so from what we've seen now, there's normally now dedicated spaces for it. I think because you don't, it's always tough managing where the drivers come and collect things from. So from what we've seen, it's mostly dedicated.
Oh, sorry, you mean on the delivery pickup then? So where you pull into the bay and then you pick your stuff up.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
Yeah,
that's very interesting. And you've been recruiting. What's the plan? So you've got, your team is growing now. You've got how many up to now?
So we've got in London. There's now 4 of us. So still super small team.
You don't? Do you need to be huge then?
No, I think now
that's when you know you've got a good product.
I think with us 4, I think we can scale to kind of tens of thousands of locations with just four people.
It's insane. I think when you first came to the market, when you came to meet us, it's one of the products you get super excited about, because you're just like, this is easy. As in, no offense, but you know, as in, if I think it's easy, then obviously most of the people you speak to are like, okay, so we haven't got to do a lot. You put your camera up, and then we're off.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure there's more to it.
Well, the thing is that most people ask me, like, what's the catch?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. That's what I think. When we first met, I was like, okay, but what else? And you were like, there is nothing else.
Yeah, and I think the fact that we get it's a product that people need at a price that's, we average, I think, a 15x ROI on our price, and it gives time back to the staff. So it's like you're getting more revenue, your staff are spending less time on things they shouldn't be doing anyway.
Operationally better.
You get better insight into genuine mistakes that are happening that you can fix. It kind of, it's very simple, but it makes sense.
Yeah, fair play. Obviously, that time spent in the Middle East was well spent. Obviously, that also blows my mind. Are they in the UK then? Are they doing that? The biometric stuff you were talking about?
So they're in the US and the Middle East at the moment. I keep on telling them to come over, but I would imagine kind of biometric legislation might be punchy here.
Yes, I imagine. Good old government. But it's just so weird, isn't it, that we have queue busters that now form queues. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to find you?
Website, getopspot.com, LinkedIn, anything we're
carrier pigeon, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Speak to Tommy Giroux, he's a big fan. Yeah. He loves it. He was on the podcast a while ago. But no, really great, Nick. Thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate your busy day with your liquid death there. You can enjoy the rest of that now. And we'll see you all next week. Thanks very much.
Chris.
Cheers.